Welcome into the latest edition of the Pump Fake, everybody. Jarrett Bailey with you as always, joined by the amazing, the talented, the wonderful Mr. Aaron Schatz. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. It's been a good season so far. I'm enjoying the autumn weather. Driving down to Gillette Stadium on Sunday was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I bet.
Sunny day, foliage, the kind of stuff that people fly from all over the country to see. It was great. And then an interesting ball game and a nice drive home listening to the afternoon game. So it was good. I've had a good weekend.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. A lot of people in the Landover, Maryland area had a tremendous weekend that was capped off by one of the crazier finishes we've seen in a while in the NFL. And we'll start with the Washington Commanders today because, you and I talked ahead of the season, and the thing that really sticks out with the projections from you in the almanac is the factorization of rookie quarterbacks. You can never bank on them being, really good and uplifting a team right away. But we've seen Jayden Daniels really do that thus far. And the Commanders now, at 6-2, they feel like a shoo-in for the playoffs in an NFC that's kind of cluttered with a lot of 4-4 teams and whatnot. But the defense is something that I think a lot of people had their trepidations about. What can you say, or what does DVOA say about their defense right now? Because you look at their success rate; it's one of the bottom tiers in the league. EPA, it's bottom 12 in the league. They're getting contributions from the likes of like Frankie Louvu and whatnot, but somehow they're holding teams to fewer points in recent weeks. It feels like a weird defense to me, if nothing else.
First of all, I'll say this about the rookie quarterbacks: they turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
Jayden Daniels, of course, is stellar. Caleb Williams and Bo Nix are doing enough to keep defense-oriented teams viable. Right? Like, I don't think Bo Nix is having what you would call a really good season.
Right.
And Caleb has been down and up. Right? He was down and then he got up, and then this week
Yeah,
he was
and
back.
then he went overseas to London, and everybody's like, "Oh my God! Like, look what he just did to the Jaguars defense." And it's like, well,
Yeah, but they've been, their teams are winning.
yeah.
And the one guy who I think is really struggling is when I said you have to consider Anthony Richardson a rookie. You basically do.
Yeah.
As far as the Washington defense, it has improved over the last few weeks. Neil Greenberg from the Washington Post asked me something about this, so I ran the first 4 weeks of the season. They ranked 31st on defense in DVOA. The last 4 weeks, they rank 11th.
Wow.
So they have definitely improved. It's no longer fantasy like always bet on the over on the yardage of any wide receiver one playing Washington
Right.
the way it was last year and for the first few weeks of this year. Like, their defense has definitely improved. So, I am very much of the belief that the Commanders are absolutely for real. They are the favorites to win the NFC East, especially with the defense getting a little bit better, and the offense is obviously great. There's this interesting split that we've seen this year where EPA stats think Washington is like historically good, and DVOA thinks that Baltimore is historically good on offense, and has Washington third.
Okay.
And it's sort of interesting the difference between the two metrics, but either way, Washington is very good, and I think for real.
When do we start putting Jayden Daniels into like the MVP conversation? Obviously, he feels like the yeah, okay. I posted something about that last night where it's like, aside from like the crazy Hail Mary and everything, he was playing incredible up until that point. Right now, he's second in the league in EPA per play behind Josh Allen. For the majority of the year, he was leading the league in that category before missing most of the game against Carolina. But yeah, you would agree that he's there already?
If we were voting today, he would be one of my 5 guys.
Okay.
He would not be number 1, but he would be one of the 5 guys on my ballot.
I love it. Who would be number 1, if you don't mind me picking your brain?
Ironically, Lamar Jackson.
Would you look at that? How the turntables.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson is the MVP this year. Lamar Jackson is leading the league in passing value by my stats by a big chunk. and also is leading the league in rushing value.
Okay.
We have a really weird, rare thing. It's rare that the same quarterback leads the league in both passing and rushing value. And it's rare that the same quarterback is last in the league in both passing and rushing value, which is Deshaun Watson.
Oh, amazing stuff, isn't it?
And they're both happening in the same year, although we'll see what happens with Watson now that he can't accumulate any more negative value.
Yeah. And obviously with Baltimore, the inherent question comes, especially for you who has a vote in this, how much does the Derrick Henry factor go into a vote when it comes to awarding MVPs? Because I feel like we've had that in previous years, especially when the Brock Purdy stuff was taking place. It's like, oh, well, he's got 3 other All-Pros on the offense. Christian McCaffrey's great. How much does the Derrick Henry factor into this?
I feel like Jackson helps Henry more than Henry helps Jackson. And that's not to belittle what Henry has done this year, because Henry has been fantastic this year by all the, all the new advanced metrics that we have that try to measure the running back separate from the offensive line, like rushing yards over expected and stuff like that. He's been fantastic. But we know that the quarterback, a rushing quarterback, a mobile quarterback, opens things up, opens lanes up for the running backs. So I think that Henry is more dependent on Jackson than the other way around.
Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. Well, there you have it, folks. The one man who did not vote for Lamar Jackson an MVP last year is banging the drum for him now. I brought up Josh Allen, and I may as well ask you about my Lord and Savior Joshua Patrick Allen. That's the one who did get your vote last year for MVP. And if I had one, he would probably get mine right now. I think that a lot of people were quick to write off the Bills just because of all the offseason stuff where they saw a lot of veterans leave. They had to cut a lot of guys for cap reasons, obviously the Diggs trade, but he has made a lot of noise with a lack of weapons throughout most of the season. Keon Coleman's really come alive. Obviously, Amari Cooper coming in and making an instant impact. But Allen has, I think, transformed his game in a way that we saw Patrick Mahomes do it after the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, where it's become less of the offense being, all right, let's go bombs away every play. Now it's more of, okay, we're going to be an efficient offense that really, will lean on the run game and James Cook, but also understand that we can dip into the well of Josh Allen being a cyborg when we need to. And I think that he's found a really good balance of that so far this year.
I agree. I have him 4th in passing value.
Okay.
And one of the guys ahead of him is Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield's ahead of him in part because Baker has thrown so much. And that's not going to last, because now that Mayfield doesn't have Evans and Godwin, that's nothing against Baker, who's been, I think, better than anybody expected since he got to Tampa Bay last year. But, it hurts to lose those guys. The thing about Allen, I will say, is FTN charting, we chart interception-worthy throws. And Allen has something like 6 or 7 of them this year, but he has 0 actual interception. Like he's had last year he had bad luck as far as how often his interception-worthy throws became interceptions. Yeah. This year he has good luck. So he's not necessarily, between that and the amount of yards after the catch that he's been the beneficiary of, he's probably not having as good a season as the numbers would look otherwise. I think I would probably put him on my ballot if we were voting today, but again, he would not be number 1.
Yeah, and even the first pick that he did throw of the year was, Amari Cooper slipping and whatnot in the Seattle rain. But yeah, I mean,
he did throw one this week. Okay,
he did throw one. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't see more people.
But that probably is not an interception-worthy throw, because if your receiver slips and you throw to where he was supposed to be, my guess is that is an interception that we actually would code as not interception-worthy.
Good stuff all around. Let's talk about teams that you brought up Bo Nix. So let's talk about the Broncos and a few more of these teams that Denver right now, winning record. Their defense is awesome. To me, they feel a lot like the 2021 Patriots, where, they have a rookie quarterback, a good defense. They play a lot of bad teams and they're winning those types of games, but their quarterback, he's doing what they need him to do, but he's not exactly Superman. That's kind of how I feel about Denver right now. What do you say?
I realize that everybody thinks I'm wrong about this. Mac Jones was good as a rookie. The Patriots offense was like 10th or 11th or something that year. He had one of the top dozen rookie seasons by a quarterback, according to my stats. What happened to Matt? I mean, yes, it's partly because Josh McDaniels did a great job of coordinating things to make it easier for him. Yes, they didn't trust him in the wind against Buffalo that year. Yes, he fell apart after that. There's never been any quarterback who fell apart after a good rookie year like Mac Jones. But it doesn't change the fact he was good as a rookie. He was better as a rookie than Bo Nix has been. The Broncos ranked 24th in offensive DVOA. But this defense has been fantastic, and Patrick Surtain is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And they're third in special teams, which is a surprise because the Broncos traditionally have bad special teams because their special teams look better than they really are because of altitude. So they're always very lackadaisical about improving their special teams because it looks good because things go far in the altitude. But this year they've had very good special teams. And that's also, when you're a defense team, having good special teams is a nice thing to have. Patriots had it for all those years. The thing is, if they want to be a defense and running team, they better start running the ball better.
Yeah. And with the Broncos, the Chargers as well in the AFC West, I feel like they're each teams that like I'm not taking like seriously per se, but for different reasons. Obviously Herbert's great, but when you look at the Chargers' luck, it still seems to be the Chargers' luck that we've seen of years past when it comes to injuries and things of that nature. And the offense, man, like I understand Ladd McConkey had a really awesome game yesterday, but if Ladd McConkey and Joshua Palmer are like your keys to overcoming this deficit and getting a win in the AFC playoffs, I just don't foresee
Quentin
it going
Johnston
well.
Playing better than last year.
He has been.
But no, I'm with you. The Chargers offense does not excite me in the least. We have them 18th, and I can't believe they're that high. And yes, I know Herbert is so good, and we can debate how good Herbert is. Certainly, I work closely with Mike Tanier, and Mike
our
Tanier
mutual buddy Mike Tanier,
anti-Herbert, like the biggest anti-Herbert guy out there. He just wants to see the results. And what you're seeing instead is this weird Justin Herbert as caretaker quarterback thing, which is strange because that's not Herbert's deal at all. But their defense has been really good. And Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator who had been at Michigan with Harbaugh, is definitely a guy who's going to get some talk, I think, for coordinator of the year, especially with the Vikings defense falling off a little bit. So maybe Brian Flores doesn't run away with that award. Minter's done a really good job with the Chargers, considering that Bosa has played less than half the games. So it's a lot of like, who are these guys other than like Khalil Mack?
What do you make of the Vikings, though? That's a good transition. Yeah. What do you make of the Vikings, though? They've lost 2 straight after a 5-0 start. Is that a real team that can make some noise in the NFC playoffs?
Yeah, I'm still a believer in the Vikings, even though their defense has come back to earth after being so incredibly good. I ran something this week. I was trying to figure out about the Vikings when they had one of the top 10 defenses we had ever measured through 5 games. Should we have known that was going to fall apart because none of those players were Pro Bowlers? And the answer is no. The answer is there doesn't seem to be any correlation between how many past Pro Bowlers are on a defense and whether that defense can keep it going after a hot early start. But the top 40 defenses through 5 weeks all got worse for the rest of the season. All 40 of them. So they were never going to stay at the level that they started at. But I'm a big Kevin O'Connell believer. I think that he has made Sam Darnold average, and he can continue to make Sam Darnold. He and having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison has made Sam Darnold average, and he can continue to do that. And they're getting Hawkinson back, and that's positive too. And the defense can stay good. It's not going to be as good as it was early on, but I am definitely a Vikings believer. I think the Vikings are a very viable playoff team.
I do want to stay in the NFC, though, because last night we saw the battle of San Francisco and Dallas. And it felt like whoever lost that game, that was going to be kind of the end-all, be-all of their season. And to me, Dallas and San Francisco were similar in the light of they both seem kind of dysfunctional this year, but the 49ers just have the talent where they can overcome that sometimes. Dallas doesn't, and we're starting to kind of see the ramifications of that.
And so much has to do with the injuries
Yep.
for those two teams. What we've seen with Dallas is the limit of their roster building mentality and the fact that they didn't go out and add free agents and, in fact, let a lot of free agents leave this offseason and didn't replace people. And so when they started to have injuries like Brandon Cook, I mean, there's two different kinds of injuries, right? There's we lost a guy and the depth behind him is not good. That's Brandon Cooks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's we lost 4 guys at the same position and the depth behind them is not good because the depth all got hurt too because it's 4 guys. That's what's going on with their edge rushers right now. And the 49ers are kind of at that point with the wide receivers when Samuel got sick and they didn't have, and then Ayuk got injured and Pearsall was just coming back. And I think the 49ers are going to be fine in the long run. What we're all waiting for is this idea that when CMC comes back, he unlocks everything. And I'm not going to argue against that idea. The film people are all believe very strongly that he unlocks everything. And I'm not going to argue against it. Now we just have to wait for him to come back. But as good as Ayuk is, there's plenty of wide receiver. I mean, they can get along fine with Debo and Juwan Jennings, who's underrated, and Kittle and Pearsall and Jacob Cowan. Like they're unless they start getting another injury, unless Debo gets hurt, they're fine. We're all just waiting for CMC to come back.
I'm starting to think that Jordan Mason was created in a lab conjointly by FanDuel and DraftKings, because anytime we see on these primetime games, everybody's talking about, oh yeah, bet Jordan Mason overs, and then he doesn't seem to finish these games. Yeah, it's just a weird phenomenon that everybody seems to be following on the app formerly known as Twitter.
Go out there and put $3,000 on Isaac Guerrero or whatever DraftKings has him listed at.
We should have. You know what? We'll do that next time that the 49ers have a standalone game. In the AFC North, the Bengals, they're now 3-5. Their defense is rough. Gave it 37 to the Eagles. Is it time to stick a fork in them, or is the AFC so congested that they can still pull their way out of this?
No, AFC is so congested that they can pull their way out of this. Defense is bad. The Bengals' defense has always been overrated because Anarumo has always done a very good scheming job when they are in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But in the regular season, their defense is always kind of, it's there. It's been average. A little bit above average some years, a little bit below average some years. Never that exciting. Their offense is only 11th, and that offense should be better. And I feel like in the long run, the talent wins out for the Bengals offense, and they will be better than that, which means they're going to finish with a winning record, and they're going to be in the wild card conversation in the AFC. Higgins being healthy obviously helps. Yoshavash is stretched as the number 2 receiver. And what happens is then everybody can concentrate on Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase doesn't do well. That's what happened in week 1 against the Patriots too. It's what happened here against the Eagles. There is a little bit of discussion, I think, starting to happen about whether Zach Taylor, whether this may need to be it for him if they don't make the playoffs. No, he's got a good record. They made a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in either the film or analytics community has ever said to themselves, Zach Taylor is really a dude. Right? Nobody in the film community watches the Bengals and go, this is schemed up so well. And in the analytics community, we feel like he's too conservative. And I don't feel like he's shown any indication that he's a Mike Tomlin-like locker room whisperer, right? This sort of intangible that we can't measure. I think there's going to be some discussion. If they don't make the playoffs, there needs to be some discussion about whether Zach Taylor needs to be replaced.
That's an interesting thing to observe, too, because there's not going to be a shortage of guys out there. And if that does happen, the number one name that's going to fly up, that's been blown up the past couple of years, is, okay, Ben Johnson goes to Cincinnati. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of Bengals fans would get very excited about.
I think a lot of football fans would get very excited about the idea of Ben Johnson running that offense.
Yeah.
Seems like it would be fantastic, although he'll do it without T. Higgins because there's no way Higgins will be back next year.
Right. And you talked about Zach Taylor being conservative. We saw that a little bit against Baltimore, right? When they decided to run on a short yardage situation, took the ball out of Burrow's hands when he was hot, and that seemingly cost them what could have been the game. So,
and then not trying to get the field goal. This idea that conservative coaches have, and that some broadcasts have, that there exists this thing called field goal range, and once you reach it, that's it, you're there.
You should just lay down.
Whereas field goal range is a hill, and every time you take a step up the hill, you're closer and closer to that field goal. So you better, if you can get 5 more yards, get them.
Yeah.
Obviously there's not much of a difference in this day and age. Once you get to like 35, you don't need the extra 5 yards to turn a 35 into a 30, but you sure would like to have the extra 5 yards that turns a 55 into a 50.
That's fair. Very fair. Tell me great things about my Steelers, because I crushed the decision to bench Justin Fields, and then Russell Wilson came in and threw a bunch of moon balls, and they scored 37 points, and it looked really fun. How sustainable is this offense with Russell Wilson going forward in your mind?
It is what it is. Their defense, I thought, was going to regress this year, and it definitely has not. We have them ranked 10th. Special teams have been good. The running game is unimpressive, which is the way it's been for the last, Jaylen Warren is better than Najee Harris, and we all know this stuff.
Oh, Najee's had a couple,
Najee's been a little bit better this year, but in the long run, Jaylen Warren is better.
Sure, I agree.
Russell Wilson gives you Justin Fields played better than I expected.
Agreed.
But Justin Wilson gives you that deep ball that Fields doesn't give you.
Yeah.
And so I think if you want to win games and make the playoffs, Russell Wilson is your better guy. I think they'll both make the same number of mistakes, but Wilson has the advantage of that, a couple of deep balls every game that Fields just isn't going to do, because Wilson has got so much accuracy on the deep ball.
That's valid all around. All right. Right now, in terms of your rankings, is there a team that might rank a little bit higher than the eye test might meet, or is there a team that might be a little bit lower that you think, okay, I think this team is actually, better than what these numbers show right now?
We actually have things stratified in DVOA so that basically all the winning teams are on the top and all the losing teams are on the bottom.
Oh, well,
the only real exception to that is the San Francisco 49ers, who are 6th in DVOA based on how they've played. Not, that doesn't give them credit for CMC is going to come back at some point. That's based on how they've actually played in the 4 wins and the 4 losses.
Yeah.
I have them 6th. So that's a real reason why I believe the 49ers are still legit contenders. They're legit Super Bowl contenders. If CMC is coming back, they are legit Super Bowl contenders because they've played like a pretty good team without him, even though they've lost 4 games.
Good stuff all around. Aaron Schatz, we can find your stuff at FTN Fantasy. Tell everybody what is over there.
Yeah, FTN Fantasy, of course. You get the DVOA ratings. If you subscribe, you get all the splits, all the historical information. Content every day on the DVOA page, but you also want to check out the Stats Hub. The FTN Stats Hub for subscribers has all this charting data updated with DVOA during the season. So we used to have to wait till the end of the season to do things like, well, here's DVOA versus man coverage and DVOA versus zone coverage. And we would look at that stuff after the regular season was over and use it in playoff previews. Now we have that stuff live for subscribers during the season. It's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. And on Friday, Brian Knowles writes an article that uses some of that data. So if you're curious about what's available and you don't want to pay for a subscription yet, make sure to read Brian Knowles' articles on Friday because he goes deep into that stuff.
Awesome stuff all around. And everybody, if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. If you're listening to this wherever you get your podcast, be sure to leave a review and a comment. I read them all, so let me hear it. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Aaron, my friend, I always enjoy talking to you and getting your insight on all this stuff. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Enjoy more of the season, man.
I will. I got Steelers tonight, Monday Night Football. Hopefully they can go into the bye at 6-2 and make me a very happy lad. That would be, if you told me the Steelers would be 6-2 going into week 9, I would be ecstatic. So
I would have been shocked. I would have been shocked. And the Giants, if you can stay upright against their pass rush, they have the worst defense in the league against deep passes. Remember what we just said about Russell Wilson.
It's music.
Keep them upright. It's a good matchup.
Music to my ears. We'll see if that ends up being true. All right, everybody. We'll be back later on in the week, as we always are. And again, subscribe, leave a review, all of that fun stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Pump Fake. Talk to you soon.